I'm your inner dream monologue, and you're fast asleep, so I'll be quick. Great job using the Colgate Optic White Overnight Teeth Whitening Pen before bed. When used as directed, it gives you a visibly whiter smile in just 7 days. So while I fly and talk to animals, you're removing teeth stains with ease. Sweet dreams. And when you wake up, keep on living life to the brightest. Colgate Optic White. Find it at all major retailers.
Yeah!
Matt, I am weirdly excited to talk about this week's episode because for two reasons. Reason number one is that when I bought the Even Worse record, actually three reasons. Reason number one, when I bought the Even Worse record, I very quickly was like, ooh, he does a Beastie Boys thing, and this like skyrocketed it to one of my favorite songs on the record as a kid. Number two, I would always bring this up when people would try to claim that like, oh, Amish Paradise was the first time Al tried his hand at doing a rap track, and I was like, false. False.
This is the first time he tries rap, which is interesting. I feel like that does not get enough. It doesn't get enough credit for that. It's his first foray into hip hop.
And three, the Beastie Boys still to this day, I would say that Weird Al and Beastie Boys still live somewhere in my top 10 musicians of all time. So for the same amount of vast, absurd knowledge I have about Weird Al, I have probably as much, if not a little bit more, about the Beasties.
Great.
So this song got me super excited. Twister is an ode to the Milton Bradley game Twister, performed in the style of the Beastie Boys. When Yankovic was recording the song, he initially recorded 20 different vocal takes. However, when it came time to pick the right take, he opted for the first one because it sounded more raw and off the cuff, and it was the last song recorded for Even Worse.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes, I saw that note about him saying he used the first take because everything else sounded too coherent.
Yeah.
And it needed to feel like it was just chaotic, yelling over it to capture the Beastie Boys energy that he was going for on this track.
Well, and the Beastie Boys, credit where credit's due, and he does capture this aspect of the Beastie Boys. I have performed 3 different Beastie Boys tribute sets with 2 other people.
3 different sets?
Yeah, we did sets, like 20-minute sets where we covered Beastie Boys. And if you decide that you want to cover the Beastie Boys as like a set, if you and 2 other friends want to do it, the hardest thing to nail down is the quickness in which they can trade off of each other on certain tracks.
Yes.
Only comparable, I would say comparably to Run DMC, but Run DMC, there's just the 2 of them. So you kind of can just bounce back and forth with like a track like Peter Piper, where it's like, Peter Piper, pick peppers.
Picks peppers and run rapped rhymes.
Yeah. But like doing something like what the Beastie Boys do, where it is like mid-sentence, 3 of them jumping on top of the track and just saying like 2 or 3 words before the next person jumps on. Like they did something that you do not see in stuff like the Wu-Tang Clan isn't having like Method Man, Old Dirty Bastard, and RZA interrupting each other on one person's verse. Like it's each person gets their verse. And I've always, if I could interview the Beastie Boys, my number one question would actually be about like, how do you write that stuff? Like, like does MCA write out his verse and then say, I think it'd be cool if I say the first 3 words of this and then Ad Rock, you need to jump in for these 3 and MCA jump in for these 3?
Sure, yeah.
Or are you sitting in a room like literally thinking of how you're going to do that? Like I'm very curious about the construction of that. But
yeah, for sure. No, I was gonna say it's clearly their biggest influence at this point, especially in their career, was Run DMC. Like that was what they were going for. They were trying to capture that Run DMC vibe and are so good at it. I mean, on the first Beastie Boys record, they even do just straight cover of a Run DMC song. So, I agree with you. I don't know how they do that either, but there's something so incredibly slick and flawless about it. There's, I don't know if this was the absolute last thing. And it's also, I don't think it's on YouTube right now, which is a tragedy, but I always have to look it up on a weird site. But I think it was the last performance that they did on television before Adam died. was they went on Jimmy Fallon and they were promoting a reissue of Check Your Head.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the interview, they get up and they do So What You Want with the Roots playing the track. And it's sad because at the time no one knew that Adam was sick, but now you can see it. Like he's moving slowly and he seems to be like not quite 100%, but they are so good at, again, the way that the three of them play off of each other at all times is one of the most masterful. And then with the Roots as the backing band, it is one of the best like live TV performances I have ever seen in my entire life. And you might have to like look on Daily Motion or one of these less.
I think I literally just got it on a TikTok. I think someone like one of the TikTok pages, like MTV Archive. There's a couple of those where it's just live performances of songs.
Beastie Boys doing So What You Want on Jimmy Fallon. Look it up. It is just absolute. It's just such a testament to how incredible performers they were. They
I would
were
also put
incredible.
I would also put on there my favorite television performance of all time is also a Beastie Boys performance, but it's them on Letterman doing what was it? Check It Out. Check It Out.
Yeah.
And it's the one where they literally start in the subway system and they are rapping through the streets of New York into the studio for the last verse.
That's right.
And it's like, God, the raw talent of these motherfuckers and being dudes who, I think the Beastie Boys is such an interesting story, right? It's three kids who were in a punk rock band. Their drummer in the punk rock band goes on to form Luscious Jackson, which I think is such a crazy piece of that story. They put out this album that's essentially making fun of frat boys in the style of Run DMC, and then it quickly gets co-opted by the very people that they were mocking. Yep. They then do a total shift in their sound for their next record, basically do so much sampling that they break sampling and like and poor Biz Markie's the one that gets like thrown in front of the bullets because
it's
of
funny.
it.
Biz Markie took the hit, but the Beastie Boys were really the thing because that album that was all, for people who don't know, the Beastie Boys record Paul's Boutique is entirely
like 250 samples. It's insane.
They don't even know how many samples are on the record because they were so stoned none of them could remember. But they made, using tape loops, it's hard to even explain how difficult this would have been to do at the time that they did this in the 80s.
And it's them with the Dust Brothers. Like
with the Dust Brothers. This was what started the Dust Brothers' career, basically. They were around, but this was like a big thing. And using only samples of existing songs created beats for a hip-hop record. I think every single sound in the backing tracks you hear on that record is a sample of something else.
The way that I tried to explain it to someone when I first, because I was late to the Paul's Boutique party. I had heard so many people be like, oh, that's their worst album, like in the late 90s, that I was like, oh,
it was such a failure when it came out.
Yeah. So when I finally sat down and listened to it, and just something like Shake Your Rump, the way that I described it to people was I was like, it doesn't even sound like they're rapping over rap music. Like it sounds like they're rapping over what like would later be like The Prodigy or like these like kind of electro techno groups where, you know, like a Prodigy song, there's a great TikTok channel. I can't remember what their handle is, so I apologize to them, where they will take a song like The Prodigy and it'll be the album at the top and it'll be playing like Smack My Bitch Up and it'll play a track of that and then it jumps down and it plays you the exact snip from the original song.
They used.
And like when you're watching, you're like, holy shit, this like 30-second loop of this song is like 9 different samples stacked on top of each other.
Oh, it's insane. It's insane. And again, nowadays, to do
Pro
that
Tools,
on a computer with Pro Tools or Logic or any of these programs, it's so easy. At this point, it's literally a room of tape machines that are looped, like a single piece of tape that is just playing in a loop. And they have to get all of these machines to synchronize in a way that everything is playing perfectly in time, and then take all of that and bounce it to a single other tape, and then just repeat that process for every, like, Shake Your Rump especially has, I feel like that song alone has 100 samples in it. Like the way that it just moves, nothing repeats itself. Everything comes back differently than the time before it. It is one of, I think Paul's Boutique is one of the best albums of all time.
I've said, and Chris Mathias has definitely mocked me for this opinion before on One Hit Thunder, but I have said that if you ask me what the most important greatest hip hop record ever made was, I would probably give it to Paul's Boutique, Beastie Boys, because it is a record that will never be duplicated. It will never be recreated.
It can't be now. I mean, at the time, sampling was such a novel, and hip hop was new. So the idea of sampling something was not. It was just like, oh, okay, you're going to use it and recontextualize it, but nobody had lifted.
No, it feels
so
more
much
like a girl talk record than an actual.
It feels like a girl
album.
talk record now. Yeah, exactly. Clearly, girl talk, big influence from this type of stuff. But yeah, nobody had dared to like lift like actual phrases and lyrics from like the Ramones or Johnny Cash as the
Led
Beasties
Zeppelin.
did.
They're like
Or Led
sampling a
Zeppelin.
ton of Led Zeppelin and the Beatles.
The Beatles are in there.
Like,
yeah.
it's
No, there's
insane.
the orchestral music from Psycho.
Yeah.
Like they
Well,
are grabbing
layered-
all these things.
That's my favorite. It's the it's the music. It's the shower scene from Psycho laid over top of the first attack scene from Jaws.
Yep.
So you're hearing the orchestra from Psycho, but you're still getting the like dun 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 cellos underneath it with the sound of the both women being attacked.
Yep.
You're hearing the screams from both
and the drum
movies.
beat underneath it is from the Beatles. It's from the end of Abbey Road.
It's
It's
crazy.
incredible.
Like,
Yeah.
it's-
Yeah. And it's this marker in time. Like you said, at the very least, it'll never be, I mean, it's a landmark hip hop record for sure. And it cannot be made again. I mean, nowadays in the world of SoundCloud and stuff, people get away with stuff and just post it. But the impact that record had is enormous.
But then they go from that. So they get the sampling stops being a thing that they're allowed to do essentially because Biz Markie takes the hit. So then they just go back to their punk rock roots, pick up their instruments, get a recording studio, and just start making the music themselves and sampling that music and doing stuff like Check Your Head and Ill Communications. And then they go back to their hip hop roots. They bring in Mixmaster Mike. He starts scratching records for them from Hello Nasty, I think, until basically the end of.
I think Mixmaster Mike was with them from the end, from there to the end at that point. Yeah.
But like they went through all of these bumps and turns, but then also like they became so like progressive minded from their beginnings. Like the whole story of the Beastie Boys is incredible. And what I want to boil this down to is that the Beastie Boys, specifically after Adam died, had a very strict rule that they would never let their music be used for commercials, that they were very anti their music being used for commercialization. So that makes this all the more funny.
All the better. All the better.
Like,
and just to put a pin on the Beastie Boys side of it for a moment, there's a really nice documentary / it's actually like a performance on stage of the two surviving Beasties talking about the career. It's called The Beastie Boys Story. It is on Apple TV Plus, I believe, which ensures that not nearly enough people will get to watch it. But if you have access, I highly recommend it. It's a great story, and again, very moving at the end there, where the sort of realization that when MCA died, everyone was like, "Are you going to continue?" And they're basically just like, "There's no Beastie Boys without." Like we literally, the idea of doing anything without him is laughable. And they have now just, I guess, devoted the rest of their lives to protecting the legacy of the music that they made together. And I'm sure they'll do other things, but I really do respect that a great deal.
I am,
and
always
like
a
you
fan
said, this
of that. I'm a fan of artists where, because again, we talked about Run DMC. They could find any other DJ, but once Jam Master Jay was gone, it was like, well, then there's no Run DMC. Like we are the three of us. Like
it's a weird situation, and I can see both sides. You know, I was just talking to somebody about how the Foo Fighters are continuing after Taylor Hawkins' death, and I really do see both sides of this, because on the one hand, I'm like, every band's dynamic is different. Everyone's going to have a different thing, and for every Led Zeppelin being like, we're not Led Zeppelin without John Bonham, it's over. I can also appreciate the fact that a band like the Foo Fighters, those guys, I mean, even ignoring the musicians, think about all the people who work with that organization, how many people depend on, I mean, it is like you are taking a life, you're taking a career away from dozens of people potentially.
Dozens of people. But there's also, I mean, the flip side is like, sometimes you continue on and it doesn't really work.
And it doesn't feel the same. Exactly. Yeah. My only point is that I feel like there's no right or wrong answer to this. It's very circumstantial, and it depends on the scenario. Like I wasn't surprised at all. I'm like, I believe that and of course the Foo Fighters started as a Dave Grohl project anyway, so it doesn't feel like Taylor Hawkins wasn't even on the first.
Yeah, it'd be different if David died and they're like, well, we're just going to find another singer and keep going.
If Dave Grohl died and they were like, we're going to keep doing the Foo Fighters, people would be like, what?
Yeah. But I mean, I would think so. So I'm going to say two things tied to almost the exact same world. Blink-182, when Tom left, they continued as Blink-182 with a different person, and they definitely sold their records. And there are people who really love California and 9 and think that they're great albums. To me, they're good albums that don't feel like Blink-182 albums.
Sure, and that's totally fair. And I knew people who thought that they were better live with Matt on guitar.
I mean, I can
Tom.
understand that, but I think about, would Blink-182 continue if, say, Tom or Mark had died? Like, I think that there's a difference between someone leaving the band and someone who's kind of your brother passing away. Because if they leave the band, I think deep down in your heart, there's always the chance that they come back, that they might come back. Like, and I think even in the same boat, I think that if Trey or Mike was to pass away, I don't know if Billy Joe would keep doing Green Day, because there'd be that emotional hole of like, since I was 17, I've played with these two people.
Green Day is a good one. I just pure speculation on my part, but I would think that they would probably stop. Only because Billy Joe is the front man of like 11 bands.
Yeah, and he could just
not
move
Green
on
Day,
and
I feel like he could very easily just like, and he could go out with a band like the Long Shot or Foxborough Hot Tubs or anything like that, and throw Green Day songs into the mix. And no one would object. He could even go out solo and play Green Day material with a random band.
I think that, playing any Green Day music that Mike and Trey aren't a part of would just feel
and
wrong.
Calling it Green Day.
Yeah, and calling it Green Day would feel wrong.
Exactly.
But so that's our little brief history. We've done a great job of talking about everything that's not specifically the song Twister. So let's talk about this minute-long fake commercial that Al did selling the game Twister as the Beastie Boys.
So, first of all, because this blew my mind, did you know that the words to this are verbatim from a Twister commercial?
I knew that probably a decent chunk of it, but I did not know that they said all the girls and homeboys in a commercial.
Okay, they changed a couple words. And in the original version, it said Milton Bradley's got a new one, not Milton Bradley's got a deaf one.
But yeah, I feel like I've seen when I was listening to it today, I did not know this for sure. But when I was listening to this, I was like, I know for a fact that I've watched a Twister commercial that has the spin the spinner and call the shots, Twister ties you up in a knot line.
Yeah, and then calling out the colors.
Yeah.
I found a YouTube link. We can share it on the things. From 1966, there's a Twister ad that the script of the ad is, with the exception of a couple word choices, verbatim the words to this song.
Yeah.
So this is literally him taking a Twister commercial and putting it in the mouths of the Beastie Boys, for lack of a better term. It is so interesting and brilliant. Taking this, this snottiest group he could find at this point in time, the most obnoxious, snotty street guys, and having them pitch this wholesome family game in a fake commercial.
But
also
yes
a real
and no.
commercial.
But yes and no, because so I was thinking about this. As you're talking about this, I'm thinking, am I a hypocrite? Right? Because I love this thing, but I hate something like the Brady Bunch. And my reason for hating the Brady Bunch is that he just took lyrics that were already written for the Brady Bunch theme and put it over top of the Safety Dance. But I think the difference is that this actually feels like it's also making a statement about the types of commercials at that time.
Exactly.
We were absolutely bringing in these weird celebrities who had no business selling a specific product and being like, hey, do a song and it still happens. The nationwide song is now being sung by random ass country artists every couple months.
Yeah. This is very much like, in terms of presentation, it is very, very similar to Brady Bunch. And it is very similar to Beverly Hillbillies, which we have not talked about yet, but is coming up. But this, I totally agree with you. We're not going to get into Beverly Hillbillies yet, but Brady Bunch does not feel like it's saying anything, really. It's just a funny juxtaposition. This, yes, you're right. There's definitely some social commentary and some messaging in this track that is way more interesting and makes it all the more like, satisfying to think about.
Yeah. No, for sure. It's I mean, I really do love this track, and it does capture, like you said, he absolutely nails everything that the Beastie Boys were in 1988.
Yeah.
Like, it's the way that they trade off the right foot blow. Like,
yeah, exactly.
And I for whatever reason, just that from MB, like at the very end, is so enjoyable to me. And the is, I mean, if you listen to any of License to Ill, that sample
it's
or a
all over
version
the
of that
place.
sample is everywhere.
Yeah.
TIAA is on a mission. Why? Because 54% of Black Americans don't have enough savings to retire. So in collaboration with big-name artists like Wyclef Jean, TIAA released Paper Right, new music inspiring a new financial future. With 100% of streaming sales going to a nonprofit that teaches students how to invest. Stream Paper Right now and help close the gap.
Hi, I'm your inner dream monologue, and you're fast asleep, so I'll be quick. Great job using the Colgate Optic White Overnight Teeth Whitening Pen before bed. When used as directed, it gives you a visibly whiter smile in just 7 days. So while I fly and talk to animals, you're removing teeth stains with ease. Sweet dreams. And when you wake up, keep on living life to the brightest. Colgate Optic White. Find it at all major retailers.
It is mind-blowing
and heartbreaking
how many original scripts are written every year but are never made.
So we seek out these scripts and bring them to life with full audio production and professional actors.
Check us out at Undiscovered Scripts,
Movies made of paper.
wherever you get your podcasts.
Free.
With something we've never talked about before. Were you a fan of Tim and Eric?
I have shockingly seen very little to no Tim and Eric.
Interesting.
I know that Chris from One Hit Thunder, massive Tim and Eric fan.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of my friends went to the college that Tim and Eric went to in
really?
Philadelphia. They came from Philly. They went to Temple University.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
but
so much so that like my friend had film classes with the professor that I guess one of the more famous characters in Tim and Eric is based on.
Right.
And he's like,
wow.
He's like, you look at him and you're like, yep. That's
Well, anyway, the reason why I brought them up is because it was a real hallmark of them, especially early on, although they've still done it. I mean, those two have sort of gone their separate ways, although they still do stuff together from time to time. But something that they loved to do was fake commercials.
yes.
And they would make fake ads. And it's funny, they just recently did a thing that's on YouTube that's worth what it's very funny and you'll get a lot of laughs out of it, but talking about how this interesting thing that happened to them of like they made fake commercials for like Papa John's, and they did a whole series of ads promoting like Shrek the Third, just the two of them being like, you got to check out this movie, and that process eventually led to them being asked to make actual ads. Which then, as far as their fans were concerned, it was like, oh, wait, now Tim and Eric are making an ad for Absolute Vodka, or they're making an ad for Totino's Pizza Rolls, and no one knew whether it was real or fake, which they loved.
Yeah.
You know, they were like, that's great. Like, we don't want people to know. It shouldn't matter whether we actually got paid by this company to make this or we're doing it completely on our own with no context. And the whole idea of like that being a commentary on commercialism, where commercialism and art intersect.
And that is the thing that I love. Like, I'm thinking about that, and I'm like, I think about the sketch comedy that I like the most.
Mm-hmm.
And like SCTV and The State are two huge examples of like, those are sketch comedy shows that are almost just parodies of television. Like the construct of television.
Exactly.
More so than like an SNL. You know, like an SNL or a Mad TV, that was sketch in such a wide scope. We're going to tackle politics. Some of this is just going to be, hey, it's some people hanging out in their house and something weird happens. But like so much of, SCTV just within its name, but even I would say 90% of the sketches that you would see on The State in the 90s were like, it was a parody on how we commercially sell ideas on television. Exactly that. And that's something that's fascinating. Two films that my friend made that I absolutely love. I actually we should have. In retrospect, I should have hit him up to do this because this is totally his fucking jam. Is fake commercials. Have you ever seen WNUF Halloween special or the Out There Mega Halloween tape?
I have never, but it has been on my radar for a while.
Yeah.
I'm overdue to watch it. I know about it.
But for both of those, my friend Chris, who made them, like, he sat down and was just like, I'm going to make like 70 fake commercials from the 80s or for the Out There Halloween mega tape. Like, I'm going to make a shit ton of fake commercials that would have been on TV in 1993.
Yeah.
And like being so meticulous with like, this is the, it's, you listen to him talk about it and there's so much thought that was put into it where it's like, what time was this show that you're watching this tape of aired?
Yeah.
So like, were you going to get a lot more of the infomercials and like the kind of almost red band movie trailers? Or was it playing in the middle of the afternoon where it's like a lot of toy commercials aimed at kids? Like, it was very, very thought out of like, this is what they were. Not only these were the types of commercials, these were the types of commercials that would play in this specific time slot, that time period. But
I love that.
Yeah, this is kind of, I would say that this album actually doesn't have as much of the cutting satire as some of the previous ones did. Which makes this short, like 90-second track almost stand out more because it really is saying something about.
It's not even 90 seconds. It's like a minute 6 or something like that. I mean, it is impressive how much, how much messaging and commentary we get in such a small package here. Because this really does, again, it's funny. The Beastie Boys come back. He does a brief moment of Intergalactic and a polka. Down the line. That's in Polka Power, I think. But that's it. He doesn't come back to the Beastie Boys again after this. And my initial thought was like, it's kind of a shame that for a group as incredibly important and iconic as the Beastie Boys, that they get very little representation in the grand scheme of Al's world, but actually using the License to Ill style of what they did in this way, I don't know if it would be better than, I'm not sure it could get better than this in terms of making an impact.
I think it'd be also hard to boil down the rest of their catalog into something like, because it is like Ill Communication. It's like you literally have a complete like 90s track, like Sure Shot, that is pure unadulterated 90s hip hop. And then immediately the next single is Sabotage, which is like just straight hardcore punk from the 80s type song. So I think that it would be tough because they dabbled in so many genres at that point. It would be tough to boil it down to where someone could definitively be like, oh, this is a send up to the Beastie Boys anymore.
It's so true. And as I'm saying it, like the idea of even a full Al parody of like Intergalactic, a part of like, as I say it, I'm like, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that would have been great. Possibly not.
And I don't think they were ever at the, I guess that was the other thing I was going to say.
Intergalactic would have been the one for like later in his career.
Later,
that was a big enough hit. He could have done it.
They never really hit the highs of, as much as they continued to be in the public eye and they had these, like, they were a cultural phenomenon with License to Ill. And then I think they actually, in the 90s, I could be totally wrong. I am not looking at any numbers to justify this. But I think by the time we get to the 90s, they become so much more of an MTV band than a radio band. Not to say that their songs weren't played on the radio, but like MCA, something that people don't talk about enough, MCA directed almost all of their videos that you remember. Like, he really sat down in the director's chair, and, the MTV Video Music Awards or Music Video Awards, I can't remember. They have the two things that are basically the same fucking abbreviation. They won a Video Vanguard Award, and like, I think about like Michael Jackson won that, and like absolutely, and like the Beastie Boys won that, and like absolutely, and you kind of look at like who's been winning it in the last couple of years, and because music videos have stumbled so far from the art form that they are, like, I would say the only group in the last 20 years that I could definitively say like this is what a Video Vanguard band would be like OK Go, where the video is such a like, it's not just a band on stage playing a song. Like you will be hard pressed to find a video that the Beastie Boys released between like Check Your Head and Beyond, that's just like live footage cut together with them on stage.
Yep.
Like they were mini movies that they were making for these videos at that point.
Adam Yauch also founded the film production company Oscilloscope,
Yes, that's
which
right.
still exists to this day. And puts out some really interesting, a lot of documentaries, a lot of music stuff, but also some just really great sort of narrative films. Like, And that's why I was hinting at it before. Like they were saying on stage, like the idea of this group continuing without Adam Yauch was just like non-existent.
Yeah, he was so much.
He was so much a part of the creative process. And, and all that. Yeah.
It's and we'll end on this because I don't know. I mean, it's funny because right now we're doing these albums where we get maybe 1 or 2 music videos to put on the music video list, and it's hilarious to think that as music videos died out of the norm, that's when Al starts doing like 12 videos.
Classic, right? Of course, yeah. Every song gets a video later.
Yeah,
after no one's interested.
It's almost the Toxic Avenger movie that I'm sure is important to both of us.
Oh, sure.
Lloyd Kaufman has said that the reason they made that movie was that they read a newspaper article that said that the horror movie was dead, and they're like, perfect, let's make a horror movie.
See, that's what we need. You need people like that in the world. That's so important, and that's but absolutely.
I hope that we get to a point. I don't think that we'll ever have an MTV again. I don't think there'll ever be a point where there's this channel playing music videos. But I would love for there to be a reason, and I don't think there will be because the music industry is just fucking dying in debt right now in a sad way. But like, I miss when a music video premiere fucking mattered. Like when Michael Jackson's Black or White was simultaneously played on like 6 different channels because it was that big of a deal that this new music video was coming out. Like, I don't know if it means like we play music videos along with previews before movies. Like, I want music videos to matter again, because how many amazing directors did we get because they were cutting their teeth making these weird abstract, like Spike Jones,
I was going to say, who worked with the
Gundry.
Beastie Boys a lot. Spike Jones actually directed the documentary I'm talking about.
But that's like, you got these
Michelle
people
Gondry, Jonathan Glazer, Chris Cunningham, all these, like, there's incredible.
Just cutting their teeth
directors
on strange stuff that, like, David Fincher's entire career started doing music videos.
Sure.
Like,
Sure.
I'm kind of bummed that there's probably this whole generation of young directors who might not get the opportunities that they could have gotten in the heyday of the music video days to prove in like 4 minutes how creative they could be.
Yeah.
Now it's kind of like, if you want to even have a chance to make a big budget movie, it's like, well, you've got to make about 14 zero budget movies, hope that one of them pops off somehow, and then maybe Marvel will let you make the Eternals. Like,
Yeah. Or, figure out a way to write a script that you can make on your own at home for $100 and then shop it around and hope that, Shudder or some, like smaller distribution company will pick it up.
Yeah, it's tough. I don't know. I still to this day think that
I
music
agree with
video,
you.
it's one of my favorite forms of entertainment. I could sit and just watch music videos for hours still.
Yeah, and I mean, never say never. I mean, just because MTV doesn't come back doesn't mean that music videos might not find a way to resurge in some meaningful way. At the end of the day, people are looking for content, as we like to say, and short content is definitely very popular right now compared to long form. And the idea that a music video is a piece of long form content is beyond my belief that I'm saying that. But yeah, compared to a 7-second clip on TikTok that someone gets 4 seconds into before they swipe away.
That's why I was impressed with, like, are you familiar with Melanie Martinez?
Maybe not.
She's kind of like an anti-pop star. I would say that she falls into like, oh my God, I'm blanking on who. Oh, like she's very Billie Eilish in a way.
Okay.
Like very dark. So she's only put out 2 albums. Both of her albums are concept albums, which is extra impressive since the first one, she was like 19 when she made it. And
I'm sorry, I just looked it up. The album Crybaby.
Yes.
That's her. I do know that record. Yes.
So for both of those albums, I'm pretty sure she directed all of them herself. There is a music video for almost every single track. But the second one that she put out in 2019, K through 12, she released the album on the same day that she released a feature-length movie on YouTube that was every song's music video with just like scenes to connect all the story together, a la like
Wow.
Pink Floyd The Wall. You know,
Sure.
like so there are these like young creative people out there who are like, no, like that I wrote an album, the album's a story, and I will tell my story cinematically using music videos as the format to do that. But it's so many summers.
I'm now remembering Beyonce did that a few years ago with Lemonade. Too. That came out as a concert, as a film.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still people trying to keep it alive. It's just it's harder than it used to be to keep people's attention, which
I
is
just
really
miss
what
those
we're
summers,
up against,
man.
I think.
You know those summers you would just sit in the basement, have MTV on, and like be doing other shit with your friends. But
Sure, absolutely.
every once in a while, a video would come on. You'd be like, "Oh, guys, shut up! This is the best one."
You were doing that when you weren't running that scam on your video store where you were getting 5 movies at a time with free returns.
Putting them out of business,
That's maybe
baby.
my favorite story you've told on this show. I don't remember what episode that was, but people should go back and listen to the story where Matt drove a mom and pop video store out of business.
Look, the simplest way to hear that story is to start at the beginning of the podcast and re-listen to every single
There you
episode
go. That's the
multiple
move.
times.
If you don't know that story, that's on you guys. Go back to the beginning and then catch up with us, and then you're going to know what I'm talking about.
I was just about to wrap up the episode, and I realized we didn't even rank the song yet. So we
should probably rank
do-
the song. I know we took a lot of tangents on this. I feel like this is maybe our most tangential episode ever. But again, if you go back and listen to them all, you'll be able to tell us if that's true. So we're calling this an original song.
Yep.
Even though it is... No, this is an original song. Absolutely.
It's not even. I was like, I don't know why he's making this a debate here.
Well, again, because of how he took the original lyric. Like, there's some like George of the Jungle element exists here in terms of taking something that already existed. But yes, no, you're right. It's an original song. I apologize for even considering that it wouldn't be.
Dare you?
How dare I? Why don't you go first, Matt?
All right. I think I figured this out. I reserve the right to change my mind on this later.
Great.
Maybe.
Yeah, we've opened that door now.
No, but I know that I like this more than Velvet Elvis. I don't think I like it more than a lot of the other originals that we've talked about, nor do I think I like it more than the last original that we have to talk about on this. So I'm still keeping it kind of low, but I'm realizing that there's a good chance that there's like 4 songs from Even Worse in my top 10 original songs very soon. I'm putting Twister between Christmas at Ground Zero and Slime Creatures from Outer Space.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, pretty high up there, actually.
That is pretty high up. I'm impressed. I'm definitely, as much as I enjoy this, I feel like just the nature of it, it's such this small little bite-sized piece. Like, it's clever. It's really fun, but just the nature of how short and commercially it is, I don't think of it the same way as I do some of these other ones. So I'm going to put it right next to another Even Worse track, and also next to another one that you ranked it against. Yeah, I'm going to put it in between Slime Creatures from Outer Space and Stuck in a Closet with Vanna White.
All right. Fair enough. That's still, reasonably high.
It's not bad. It's certainly not bad. Again, I think this is really clever. It's super clever. It's super fun. It goes down smooth, but it's also just it's a very, it's like it borders on being a sketch more than a song.
I think that's fair. All right.
Yeah. Well,
that is next week. We wrap up Even Worse.
My God, it went so fast.
It's wild how quickly we run through, specifically like Polka Party and this one. His 10 to 11 track albums seem to fly so much more than the 12 track albums.
I know, 12 track, way too long, Al.
Like that one extra track just really makes those episodes feel like they drag. Yeah. But yeah, we'll be back with our final episode of Even Worse, and then we're getting dangerously close to being done the 80s already for Weird Al.
Wow.
And
it's
after
crazy.
that, it like this is kind of the end of the like year to year releases as well. Then we then we get some big gaps when we get into the 90s and beyond.
Yeah, that's good. He deserved a break.
He did.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.